Well, it's nearly good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sarah Stanton, and I have my company's Cargo Travel, and I'm based in Boston. And it's my pleasure to be here today. And would you love to just blink your eyes and be right there in that beautiful, beautiful place? So I'd like to invite my panel to come to the stage, please. We are going to be talking about marketing Ireland. I mean, how difficult could that be, right? We have joining us today Ruth Moran from Tourism Ireland. She is the Publicity and Communications Manager. We have Michael Morris from the Hinch Distillery. We just saw that wonderful video. Jeff Wright from Aer Lingus, and Elizabeth Grable from CIE Tours. And last but not least, Michael Mead from Sullivan Brewing Company, based in New York. So you're all very welcome. We have so much to talk about. We had to have a larger panel of people on stage. So anyway, so just talking about Ireland, and as I said, trying to market Ireland. To me, I think Ireland sells itself. Obviously, we're all here today and talking about Irish America. Starting from that itself tells you how amazing and the reach it has around the world. So. The travel and tourism community, or travel in general, for the past couple of years took a huge hit. There's no question about it. And it really had an impact on, you know, all that joy that people had in wanting to travel. So today we're going to talk about how Ireland is back and Ireland is open, and some old pandemic isn't going to hold us back, that's for sure. So with our group today, we wanted to talk about, you know, how do you market Ireland after a post-pandemic? How do you market Ireland after people weren't able to travel, and what has changed in that? And, you know, we also see that the demand is huge. I'm sure everybody in this room has been to Ireland, if not once, but many times. And I don't know if many have been already since pandemic. A show of hands of anyone who's travelled? There we go. Well done. Thank you very much. Okay, so just to start off, I'm going to start off with Ruth here. Ruth, travel is back in a big way. Maybe you can give us a little insight in where the numbers are, what the statistics are, or what Tourism Ireland has seen and what you've been doing to kind of bring this great demand.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you very much to Martine and all of the team. I think the key part of why Ireland is back is the relationships that Ireland has around the globe. And really, Martine and his team and all of the diaspora media, and indeed all of the media globally, have been fabulous and very kind to us. Ireland punched above its weight in 2019, and we actually had 1 in every 10 Americans going to Europe. They actually were coming from the United States. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. So 1 in 10 coming from the United States were actually, they were going to Europe, which is fantastic. And the opportunity for us to capitalize on that, we had 11 million visitors in 2019 to the island, and 1.7 million of those were actually from the United States. But the key thing is that they were spending over 1.6 billion. So tourism is really important to the island of Ireland, as we all know. And in essence, what we do at Tourism Ireland, and it is an easier job than some, because it's such a fabulous destination, it doesn't sell itself though, but what we do is we actually do a lot of market research. We look at where the potential for visitors is. And an awful lot of that research has shown us that it is what we consider culturally curious visitors. And they really have an affinity for Ireland, but they also, we look at them, they're well-heeled travellers, they have a propensity to travel. We look at their passion points and we really drill down into what is of interest to them, and we lean into that. Now, again, the opportunity for people to visit a destination, it really doesn't happen unless you have access. And we're very, very fortunate, and Jeff will speak to the access that we've had. We're back to almost 90% of what we've had previously, which is amazing. But the opportunity for us to market in the United States, we really try to be always on. We look at all of those folks that we consider culturally curious. We look at where they're consuming media. We have a huge campaign at the moment. I hope everybody has seen what we're calling the green button, press the green button. And indeed, what that does is we're trying to really get people off their couches, get them interested, turn those lookers back into bookers, because there is that pent-up demand, as you've referenced. There is, again, a huge amount of deferred bookings that are now back on the ground in Ireland. The product in Ireland is second to none. There's been a huge investment. All of that opportunity when COVID was taking place, the Irish people never sit still, as we know. They're so inventive and always entrepreneurs, and they spent a lot of time actually developing the product on the ground in Ireland, which is fantastic. So the luxury accommodations that have opened, for example, the Cashel Palace Hotel down under the Rock of Cashel is spectacular. But all of that great development has given us an opportunity to market and let people know that the experience in Ireland is second to none. Of course, we're very fortunate that, you know, a lot of the Bloomberg, for example, called us out as a safe destination. We were number one on the list of places that you could go, that it was actually, that the pandemic was not going to be at its worst. And we've continued to maintain that perception amongst the travelling set that we are a safe destination. When the US removed the requirement that you had to test to come back to the United States was fabulous. But again, that gave us an opportunity to go out with campaigns. The Green Button, as I say, is one of our largest. We also had a diaspora campaign that some familiar faces here might have recognized across the media, and we said, the crack is back. And that essentially is what was happening on the ground in Ireland. People were really welcoming folks back and being very intuitive and very cognizant of what the new proposition would look like. And we're seeing a lot of multi-generational family trips.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of people that want to reconnect with their families, to have that experience, to spend quality time back together. We're seeing a huge focus on the outdoors. So again, in all of our campaigns, we're dialing up, and Ireland, as we know, has beautiful scenery. But again, it's identifying the scenery is fabulous, but what do you actually do when you're there? So you'll see in our campaigns that we have folks cycling and biking and hiking, and the culinary experiences that they can have. Across all of our channels, we have this always on, as I say, kind of concept. And, you know, just alone, every week we send emails out that reach over, 250,000 people on a weekly. They're potential travellers, and they engage with us. Our Facebook is very prominent. We have a great engaged audience, and a lot of those conversations start organically, and there's community conversations, but we have almost 2 million folks on that. And we have a moments strategy at the moment as well, that we're trying to incentivize people to travel when it's off season, so it's not just the summer peak times. Absolutely. But those are some of the things that we can get into discuss with some of the other folks, because I know there's plenty of.
Yeah, no, listen, there's lots to talk about for sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And talking about, those moments and off-season travel and, trying to spread it out through across the year. Maybe, Jeff, you can talk a little bit, one, about how Aer Lingus, right through the pandemic, was stuck in strong and, made it a possibility for people to go, even with the restrictions and testing and travel and all of that. But also, now you've really opened up even more of the gateways again to bring more people to Ireland. Can you speak to that?
Well, we ended 2019 with 19 flights a day. 2020, we went down to 3. So it was pretty tough. But now we're back up to 14 flights a day. So we're just about there. And we're adding a couple more this year. And hopefully 2023 will be
Even
at
better.
or above where we were in 2019. So it was in 1936, when we started, we made the mission commitment to connect Ireland with the world and the world with Ireland. And we haven't given up that mission. So during the pandemic, we had the 3 flights a day. Oftentimes those flights were not exactly full. I think I talked to somebody here today, they were on an airplane with,
Yeah.
I think you were it, that was it. And you
Oh,
sat
my
with the pilot. So it was,
Wow.
yeah, it's a rough way to make a buck, but we're still back. So we now have Shannon and Dublin, and we're going on to Manchester. That's to collect the other diaspora folks who went to England, and 71 destinations beyond Ireland. So if you're planning on going home and you want to go someplace else, we have the flights for you.
That's fantastic. So now there's no excuse.
No.
Absolutely. There's a flight out there for everybody.
And one more thing, I know that there are people who put in websites or, emails. Sign up for aerlingus.com emails, because we send out ads just about every week, and it might just hit you. Okay.
Fantastic. No, it's great. And then bringing all these people to Ireland, and once they get on the ground, Elizabeth, you can talk to what people are wanting to do, and has, people didn't get to travel for a few years. So has that changed the trends of people traveling, how long they want to go, how much they want to spend, and what type of travelers are you seeing at CIE?
Well, we're delighted to have seen that 2022 was, while not a full recovery year, it definitely was a full year of open border, which made a huge difference. Because in 2021, I think where all of us, in the pandemic, in the industry shutting down very quickly in 2020, we all assumed 2021 would reopen. It did not until the late summer. And when the borders opened, travel could commence. So basically, you do have an industry that was not able to get on those planes because the borders were not open, and except for very specific circumstances. So I guess I can explain also CIE Tours' role in the ecosystem. So CIE Tours, we are based here. We're a U.S. incorporated company, but we are owned by the Irish government. We're owned by CIE Group, which is the National Transport Association of Ireland that runs Dublin Bus, Irish Rail, Bus Éireann, and we are the little company over here in the United States which brings Americans over on guided and escorted tours to Ireland. So we have, like Jeff, we've been around 90 years, so this year actually is our 90th anniversary. But the profile of who is traveling today seems to still be being written because the pandemic opened up everyone's desire to get back out there. And I think there's a lot of pent-up travel demand. But what we have seen is that there were a lot of phases where tours, because the border was closed, tours could not operate. But there was a lot of optimism in people who had 2020 travel plans. When that got canceled, they said, well, send me late 2020. And we said, great, we'll do it. Then late 2020 couldn't happen, and they're optimistic, and they said, let's do it next year, and then we move them to 2021. But the beauty of Ireland is they are not going to give up that trip. So even if they're now traveling 2 years later, they hung on because they had the desire to go and to see Ireland. So that has been a big strength of the destination and getting us to a recovery year. So our products, I think as far as trends, you ask, like, what are travelers doing now? It is still being written because this is not a full travel year. While we are so grateful because the planes are back and the seats are there, and Tourism Ireland is doing an amazing job, we rely on both of these entities to really get our customer to the door to book their vacation. But we had a lot of time in the pandemic to assume that people were going to change their habits. What we are seeing is they are not changing their habits. What the pandemic did is it just made us stay home for a while. It did not break our desire to get together with groups of people. It did not break our desire to go into an attraction and to see that attraction. So that has been very positive. With the tours that are running, we also see that we do a very specific survey system for our guests. We send about, pre-pandemic, we sent about 50,000 passengers a year, which is quite big for a specialist for Ireland, and for a destination that's one, there are countries that would kill to have 50,000 passengers coming on their tours. But the survey cards that we do have shown that in 2022, they are just as satisfied with the experience as they were in 2019. So that tells you at least if people want to go to Ireland, they should feel confident that they're going to enjoy it. So it's the trend is that people seem to be back wanting to do what they did before. And in Ireland, what that is experience the places that Tourism Ireland is marketing so well, like the Wild Atlantic Way, Ancient East, and in Northern Ireland, the Embrace a Giant Spirit has been a great positioning. People want to go, but they want to meet people when they get there. And it's the people of Ireland, it's the outdoor spaces, and all of that is still being as well received as it was before in 2019.
And nobody ever went to Ireland to get a suntan, so.
True.
Well, I don't know. This summer they definitely got a suntan. I think the weather's been so good. No, thank you, and you're absolutely right, Elizabeth, too. I mean, the campaigns that Tourism Ireland have run consistently and identifying the different parts of Ireland, and one of the newer ones, Ireland's Hidden Heartlands, again, really now after the pandemic where people had to spend more time outdoors, to your point, Ruth, that has really just, risen up as a phenomenal part of Ireland to visit, with all the outdoor spaces, the cruising on the Shannon and things like that. So, and over that time, Irish people didn't sit on their laurels. They invested, they said, right, if we're going to be, have no visitors coming to see us, we're going to make sure that when they come back, this is going to be better than ever. And to that, there's been a lot of investment in across Ireland in the various products and experiences. And for sure, experiential travel, like when you get there, people want to just spend more time, they want to experience, they want to literally taste it, see it. And talking about tasting it, Michael from Sullivan Brain, you have a very interesting product to talk about today, and also how you people here in the United States, they get to taste a little bit of Ireland that makes them want to go to Ireland. So how do you take that tasting and then bring and attract them over to Ireland to visit?
Thank you. Thanks to the Irish Echo, and this campfire is a very great use of time, and I think more people should definitely be here. I'm in the unique position of being an Irish American who runs an Irish company. I'm extremely proud of that. I'm pretty humbled by that, and I think it's a privilege for me to be able to do that. And inherent in our strategy is to bring the authentic to the markets where we're bringing Ireland. So I'm creating a byway in my mind in terms of bringing people back home. It's inherent in our strategy, in our tap room in Kilkenny, to make that a magnet for Irish Americans and anybody else who wants to come. The pandemic really challenged us, and we built these huts outside at the tap room so that people could be socially distanced. We ended up putting USB ports in them. We ended up putting heaters in them, then half doors to keep the wind off your ankles in the winter and everything else. And what that resulted in is that our tap room, we believe in Kilkenny, is the most booked restaurant in Kilkenny City, which is something that we feel very good about. It's become a bit of a social center. And when I think about selling Ireland, it does resonate precisely with how our brand is positioned. And so what I mean by that is we're brewing only traditionally crafted Irish ales. So there's a ton of great small and medium-sized breweries in Ireland, with not just the breweries themselves, but with great brewers. And interestingly enough, most of them are replicating the American craft beer movement that began in about 1995. So we see kind of the cool beers, the cool cans, the cool graphics and so forth out of a lot of the breweries. And by the way, if I were a brewer, I'd probably want to take that path, because they're making IPAs, they're making sours, they're appealing to the whole spectrum of beer tastes. We're kind of boring. We're making, can you believe it, Irish dry stout. We're making a red ale, an Irish red, and we make a golden ale. We also make a pale ale. And in so doing, as we're knocking on doors in America, what we're trying to do is bring that authenticity that nobody's tried to do in really the last couple of 100 years. Sullivan's is the oldest commercial brewery in Ireland, and it was defunct for 100 years. So my friends and I resurrected it. And our mission is, again, authenticity. And because Americans, when we're talking about connecting Ireland to America specifically here today, most Americans who have never been and are going to go on their first tour with you and so forth, they're thinking of what? They're thinking of provenance and heritage and authenticity, again, to use the word. And we're trying to just jump right in with that. And in reverse on our byway, what we do in America to make that connection is we think one of the great organizations is the GAA. So Sullivan's is on the jersey of the Nashville GAA, the Savannah GAA, the Buffalo Fenians of Buffalo, New York, where I'm proudly from. And we do that, which enabled us to, I hope, bring dollars back to Ireland like it has. We've hosted huge groups from Cleveland. We just hosted the Savannah GAA. And we're doing things like that. There's a radio personality in Cleveland named Tim Vaughn, who's actively bringing, planning right now along your lines of active tourism. He's bringing next year 2 busloads of folks, heavily focused on both activity plus, sort of relaxation. And so we're involved with all those kind of people and want to be a part of going back and forth.
That's great. No, absolutely. And I think what you've just talked about is, we were talking about connecting. It's the big word today. It's being connected and connecting to, whether it's through music or through, the centres that we talked about. And what you've done is, in your kind of marketing, is connected to those organisations that will continue to grow that Irish-American feeling and dream, and then bring them back to Ireland, which of course ultimately what we want ourselves.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because everybody knows what beer they should have on tap at their Irish Centre throughout your various areas, But when's the last time somebody knocked on your door with an authentic Irish product and they're hoping to be a part of what you're building in your communities? So that's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Well, we're once again, keeping Ireland closer. And then to move up to another beautiful part of the country, which you just saw on the video, Michael from Hinch Distillery, you have a beautiful, I won't say new product anymore, it was before the pandemic was a new product. Can you tell us, how are you marketing your products, but also in turn with the desire to bring people to the destination to see your beautiful facility and also the broader part of Northern Ireland?
Okay, thank you. The interesting backdrop to this is Irish whiskey has been the fastest growing spirit category in the world for the last 10 years. We're now coming after Scotch, going after what's rightly ours. 10 years ago, some people won't know this, there were only 4 distilleries in Ireland. There are now 42. So this is, and what's driving that absolutely incredible number is that 25 to 35-year-olds around the world are drinking Irish whiskey ahead of Scotch. So that's the first main kind of change demographic. And secondly, and most interesting perhaps, a third of all new consumers to whiskey are women. So these are 2 massively different demographics, which we as a relatively new company are there to take full advantage of if we can. We're proudly Irish. Yes, Island of Ireland is everything to us. It's a protected kind of category, which gives us an immediate step into all the main mature markets. But we're very proud of our regionality coming from County Down in the north. We're really all Belfast boys. In fact, a shout out to my boss, Terry Cross. Dr. Cross is the brainchild and the money and the vision behind the £20 million distillery that we have. In fact, he went to the same school that Marcin went to, a few years ahead of Marcin, I would say. But he was taught and educated by the Christian Brothers. And in fact, I went to the same school, although these guys were all obviously years ahead of me. I was a relatively young fella. But yeah, so it's wonderful to be here as people who were educated by the Christian Brothers. But we're Belfast, so we're 10 miles outside Belfast. And to answer directly the question, we don't actually see the Irish whiskey companies on the island as our main competitors. We're a very ambitious company. We're the largest of the independents in the north. We're behind Bushmills as a much bigger distillery, but we are the largest independent. So we see our competition as being Scotch. With 40 new distilleries in Ireland, whiskey tourism is going to be massive. It's going to be one of the main things in the next 10 years because we watch closely. I've been at this a long time. Scotch Whisky and the Scotch Whisky Association have done a fantastic job, as actually have down in Kentucky and Bourbon Country, to really market that as a proper tourism vehicle. So in Ireland 10 years ago, and maybe even 5 years ago, that was quite a thin proposition, beyond Guinness and some of the other breweries and so on, and of the big obvious Irish whiskey companies. But it's now absolutely on fire. You're talking about 42 distilleries, new styles of whiskey, pot stills, single malts, blended whiskey being made. We're right at the forefront of a lot of that. And of course, then to just plug the fact that we're a big export company. So we have been not standing idly by through COVID. While we were building our distillery, we owned about €5 million of casks. So we export around 30 markets around the world. Biggest market for us is the United States. We're now in 24 states through the RNDC network, which is Republic. So yeah, we're very much at the forefront of the new wave of independent Irish whiskies, which are part of this Irish Renaissance. But actually, historians among us, we only actually believe that we're taking back what was originally ours. Well
said. Well said. Okay, I'm getting we're running out of time a little bit here, but just to sort of wrap it up, without a doubt, Ireland is a fabulous destination, as you all know. There's a lot to experience there. There's a lot to taste, obviously, with the amazing outdoor spaces, the development of the new products, with the great tours that are being provided. There are also so many special events. There's some American football being played in Dublin. We have ice hockey being played in Belfast. We have lots of football going on. The GAA team's going over. You don't really need a reason. There are lots of reasons. And Ireland is definitely, open and ready, and such huge demand. And that, I think, will be our positive challenge going forward, is how to meet that demand and how to, to keep it going on now for 2024 and 2025. So maybe just one last little brief thing from each of you, how you think that we're going to meet that demand just head on, just a few words, maybe. Jeff?
We'll add airplanes as long as you guys keep buying them.
Awesome.
So we are definitely
ready,
and we're on the way right now. So.
And I'm very glad to say that the government has recognised that we are competing with a very competitive set, that everybody is looking at destinations at the moment, and they have given us additional funding this year, and we're pitching very strongly to continue. But our largest ever campaign is running this year, and the challenge for getting folks there is one thing, and I think the experience that they have, and to your point, I think they have the best experience in the world, and that satisfaction level that we have, that 95%, word of mouth is going to let people know that that's going to be the best ever.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, well, I can see Martine crawling up here to the side of the wall, so we'll wrap it up. But thank you very much to my panel. There's amazing things on offer, and we all hope to see you in Ireland very, very soon. So thank you for that.